and welcome to the Shepherds and Kings podcast. My name is Jacob Trelaw, and I am the host of the podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for stopping by. And if you've, of course, listened before, thanks for coming back. I hope you've told someone else about this, and if it's been a blessing to you, I hope that you share it with someone else so it can bless them as well. We have got a phenomenal conversation for you today, and I'm really just excited for you to hear this. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first, shout out to Clean 5110. If you have not yet, please go by and check them out at clean5110.com. It is a fitness and lifestyle apparel brand that promotes a clean Christian lifestyle as well as a pro-life stance. And of course, now more than ever, we need to be standing for our faith. And it seems like a very small way, but it is a good way for you to, besides going to church and always wearing a shirt and tie, if you're a guy, that you can, while you're mowing your lawn or out jogging or whatever it is that you do, that you can show people what it is that you believe in. So go by, check them out. Use the code SHEPHERD at checkout for 10% off. Our conversation today is with Mike Williams, who is the founder of GEMS, which stands for Global Evangelism Ministry Services. He is a missionary and has been on several different fields now, and we get the chance to talk about living by faith, raising a family, living slower here during shutdown, and especially when we had this conversation, but just a phenomenal influence, a incredibly spiritual man, and I have chewed on this conversation ever since we have had the chance to have it. I know it's a bit long, but it is that kind of conversation where you might need to stop it and think about what he says, and then maybe come back and listen to more of it. And listening to it in bits and pieces is not going to be a bad thing here. So without further ado, let's get to Mike Williams. Our guest today is Mike Williams. He is a missionary and the founder of GEMS, which stands for Global Evangelism Ministry Services. And he is a husband and a father of 5 boys. Brother Mike, it's good to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Brother Jake. It's good to be on with you this morning.
Could you tell us, how you got to the mission field in the first place, and what kind of maybe in your life, give us a brief testimony maybe?
Yes, sir. Well, it started when I was 9 years old, revival meeting at our church in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We had an evangelist named Wade Eady come, and it was a Thursday night of that week. He preached. To my knowledge, he did not preach anything on missions, but the Spirit of God moved, and I, as a 9-year-old boy, just went to the altar and knew, as sure as I knew I was saved, I knew that God was calling me to missions. Sometime later that year, a missionary came through on his way to Africa, and God really burdened my heart extra for the African people. And that, just set things in motion. And I had the typical ups and downs of the teen years and wondering about life, sure, like everybody does. But through it all, it was always something there that I knew I had to serve God on the mission field. And specifically, I wanted to go to Africa. And so when I graduated high school, that was my goal, to go to Bible college and train for missions. So I went to Howes Anderson College and graduated from there with a degree in missions. And then I went on deputation, was there on deputation for almost 3 years. We went on deputation, and then before we actually finished deputation, right towards the end of deputation, we were asked to go and help a group of missionaries get started with a mission work in Ghana, West Africa. And that's how we actually ended up in Africa for the first time. And there's a lot of more history after that, but I'll leave it there. That's where we were introduced to Ghana and the Ghanaian people, and got our feet wet, so to speak, in mission work. And it's just a long journey from there. That was in 2006 when we first went to Ghana, West Africa.
So what led you after that to start so you're working with the team then, and then obviously again there's a lot of stuff going on there, but what led you to, from there, God led you to start the GEMS ministry?
Jake, when I was in Ghana, I was at the pinnacle of my life in a sense. At that point, I was less than 30, and I was a team leader. We had 13 families at that time.
Yeah.
Our church was averaging about 1,100, getting close to 1,200 people. It was a dream come true for a boy that had grown up planning to be a missionary to Africa all of his life.
Yeah.
But in 2009, in January, I prayed and fasted for 30 days. I wanted to know from God whether that was his plan for me for the rest of my life. Because I didn't want to continue down that road. If it wasn't, I hadn't originally gone to Ghana to plan to be the team leader. I had just gone to help get everything started for 2 years. And God made everything very clear to me in those 30 days that that was not his path or plan for me for the foreseeable future. So I did what was at that point the hardest decision in my life, and I resigned that work. And I did not know where I was going after that, what was going to happen. I had no clue.
Yeah.
And one of my friends actually looked at me and he said, "Mike, you're being a fool. You're giving up all of this and you have no clue what's going to happen." And the thing that immediately came to my mind and what I said back to him was, Abraham did not know where he was going when God said, "Leave your father's land and house and everything." But God said he would show him. And I said, God's told me to go, so I know that he's got a path and a plan. And so that moved me out of Ghana. God took me to Germany. I did not. It was a very unique situation. I was back in the States from Ghana for about a month when the opportunity arose to go to Germany and help a church there whose the mission pastor was leaving and going to another mission field. And we ended up going there to Germany for almost 2 years. God did a lot of really awesome things in Germany, but the big thing that he did was he just emptied me. He just, I guess I like to say he put my face in the mud, but it wasn't it was not in a mean, unloving manner. It was God emptying of me of myself so that I could have the faith that I needed to start the mission that he was asking me to start, and also to not lean on my own understanding, just emptying me of the things that I had actually asked him to. In 2006, I had gone on a prayer and fasting time asking God to remove from my life besetting sin and things that would hinder me from being used more fully. And the culmination of that was in Germany, when God really just kind of opened up my heart to myself and showed me what was there. For a long time, I looked at it like Germany was a mistake and a failure. But now, coming full circle, we've actually got my assistant pastor from those days, who's now a missionary, he'll be in Germany as soon as things open back up. So God gave me fruit, and it's an awesome thing that even in the times where God is, he says if you bear fruit, he'll purge you that you can bear more fruit. And that purging time feels like it's useless in a way, but God still gives you fruit even in that time, and that's pretty awesome.
Sure. Because I imagine we feel like we're moving backwards, like it's a negative.
Absolutely. I thought of it as negative for years. I just really thought it was all negative. Because for me personally, on the inside it was, but it was what God was doing on the inside that would help me to do more on the outside, obviously. And so we were in Germany for almost 2 years. We did not put our kids in the government school, which is against the law technically. And so about 2 years, we went to go to England to do a marriage conference there, and they wouldn't let us back into Germany at that point after that with our kids, unless we were willing to put them in the schools. So God moved us out of there. But, I mean, to be frank with you, Brother Jake, it was the timing was exactly coincided with the lesson that I needed to learn. Sure. And when God taught me to walk in the Spirit rather than to be a good person through the power of the flesh, that was, as soon as I learned that lesson and I began to spend massive amounts of time with God, to become the person I needed to be on the inside that would resonate on the outside. When I learned that lesson, God moved me on. Then I went from there to back to Michigan. I was broken. I was defeated. I felt like I didn't want to be in missions anymore, because I just didn't feel like I had the strength or the energy or the power. I started GEMS around in that time, though. I went back to Michigan. My plan at that time was not to live overseas anymore. I just wanted to be a part of my father's church and start a mission work that would help missionaries. But I'll get into GEMS in a moment, but that was where I started GEMS. And I needed that emptying in Germany to give me the faith to do what God had asked me to do. God had showed me the concept of GEMS in 2009. I was reading a book about Hudson Taylor and his mission, and I was astounded by the fact that when I read the book, while I said, yeah, Hudson Taylor was a great man of faith, what resonated to me was the God of Hudson Taylor, all the miracles that he did. And I said, well, God's not a respecter of persons. So it wasn't that it was Hudson Taylor. It was that Hudson Taylor was not afraid, or he was willing to trust God and put things on the line and let God do what he can do. So if God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, then he will still do the same things today that he did back then.
Absolutely.
And so that was 2009. He put it on my heart, actually, after I had resigned from the work in Ghana. And then God took me to Germany to get me ready. And then I came back in 2012. We started GEMS. And from there, God began to set things in motion to be where we are today. First sending us back to Ghana to base our mission in Ghana, at least our Ghana branch of our mission GEMS.
Sure. And you mentioned, we were talking a little bit before we started here about you have some other branches of GEMS in other places.
Yes, sir. So we went to Ghana for almost another 6 years. We started some work among some villages there in Ghana. And in 2017, we came back. My wife's grandfather passed. She came back. We had planned to spend a couple months here on a furlough in the fall of 2017. So I came back. And then in the January of 2018, God kind of kept us here by, it's actually the fall of 2017 and then 2018. He kept us here by, my wife was pregnant and she had a lot of complications. She was bedridden for months, and that kind of kept us in the States. And it was during that time that God helped me to come in contact with a man named Josh Brown in the church in Memphis, Calvary Baptist Church in Memphis, and he went back to Ghana with me to check on things. And then in January, my wife was doing real bad, and we were supposed to have our prayer camp, and so Brother Josh Brown went over to Ghana after being there one time. He was willing to, and he went over to Ghana, found his way from the capital city to where we lived, did everything, had our prayer camp, ran everything, and came back to the States, and God used that to call him to Ghana. And then while he was there, we lost our son. He was born live, but only lived 30 minutes. And anyway, God used all that time to basically show us that we were going to be here for a time. And he raised up Brother Josh Brown to whom I could send, kind of like Paul sent Timothy or Titus. He said, for this cause that I left you in Crete to set in order these things. And that's Brother Josh Brown's been there for a couple of years now, almost a couple of years. And at the same time, he